All right. Welcome everyone to the WAPS breakout session. I'm Yuka from the DNB Maritime Communications team and will be your host for the next 30 minutes. Joining me today is Uwe Hollenbach, who will be sharing insights from the recent studies on predicting power gains from WAPS and projects verifying these benefits in real world operations. So, just to give a quick background on Uwe, he is the senior principal engineer at DNV with broad expertise in naval architecture, ship theory, and hydrodynamics. He has contributed to international technical committees focused on ship resistance and performance, and he brings a long standing experience in evaluating and improving vessel efficiency. His work includes analyzing, predicting, and verifying the impact of fuel saving and propulsion enhancing technologies. But before we dive into the presentation, I would like to mention that we have set ample of time for a Q&A session later. So please feel free to type in your questions in the chat box throughout this session and we'll address them later. But that's all from me for now. And Uwe, I hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Yuka, for introduction. Yeah, wind-assisted propulsion systems predict, verify, achieve. So this will be a very practical session in that sense that we share, let's say, what we've observed during predicting the savings and during verification of the savings and what can be achieved today. And on the first slide, we can have a look here to the market overview. We believe this year could be a breakthrough for wind. We have beginning of this year, we have 79 installations and another 80 in the new build order book. In the order book, we have only the new builds, as typically the share of the retrofits is even larger than the new builds. So it could be that we have a much larger number coming into the play this year. We see that the wind is on the rise since approximately 2020, 2021, coming 5 to 10 vessels every year. And then it speeded up in 24 with more than 20, and in 25 even almost 30 vessels. So we see installations on ro-ro vessels, on general cargo vessels, on bulk carriers, and on tankers. Most installations are on tankers at the moment, and we see basically three technologies. That's the rotor sails, the suction sails, and the wing sails. And a little bit more on this you see on the following slide. This is what is in principle available on the market: rotor sail, suction sail, wing sail, soft sails, kite. As said, it's basically the first three which we see today on the merchant vessels. Soft sails, of course, this is the traditional sail we see still on smaller vessels. And we see, for example, modern square rigger, which is a kind of combination of the modern sails and the traditional ones. And then the very sophisticated one as a kite. But this has not yet emerged so much. It's in all cases cutting edge developments, advanced aerodynamics, automation and control, and modern materials drive the innovations. So this is what we see. So going to the next one. What do we see today? These are two pictures from vessels already in operation. So with these vessels, fuel savings of 5 to 20% have been shown, and this directly translates into greenhouse gas emission savings, and under favorable conditions, even higher savings are possible. You see the large bulk carrier with the 5 rotor sails, so vendor expect savings up to 6% in the fuel consumption, and below this smaller ro-ro vessel fitted with 4 large wing sails, and here the vendor expects savings of 15%, And in principle, this can I confirm. It must be noted there is always mentioned up to 6% and up to 15%, but what this means exactly, I come to this later. And we have another two examples in the following on the next page. So this is what I mentioned earlier, soft sails. This is a modern square rigger. On the photos, you see two large super yachts equipped with three-mast rigs. Interesting. So this is let's say a play tool for rich people, you can say. But Greenpeace is building right now a campaign and research vessel at Spanish Freya shipyards, equipped with two of these huge sails, each of 1,000 square meter sail area. And it's a small vessel, but it's equipped with diesel electric propulsion and with the possibility to regenerate power from the sails when more sail power is available than is needed for the propulsion. And so with such concepts, you can expect that easily more than 40% of the annual fuel savings compared to same-sized conventional vessels can be reached. Yeah, going to the next slide, please. So how much can I save? This is the first question we are asked. How much can I save and how can I predict this? We are defining a route the ship owners interested to sail. We're having a simple sail model for this, and then we are simulating the voyage. Here in this case, based on bi-weekly departures, we simulate over a period of 5 years. Here in this case, could be as well 10 years. And so this means we simulate both in eastbound and westbound direction. We simulate in total 120 voyages in one direction and 120 in the opposite direction. What's the outcome of such studies? We see here an average utilization of 74% of the sails. But we see as well that the voyage with the least utilization was 28%, and the voyage with the best utilization was 98%. So there's quite, let's say, a scatter in the data, and obviously this is driven by the weather conditions. So what about the savings? Utilization is one thing which is important to consider. Another thing is that there is interaction effects between the sails and between the sails and the hull. So you cannot only sum up the gains you expect for a single sail. You have to deduct a little bit. Here in this case, where we assume that 3 rotor sails are installed, we have considered a reduction of 18% due to interaction effect. And this provides an average power saving of 510 kilowatt over the years. So the next slide shows a little bit how this varies over the year. The bigger graph shows how this depends on the season. You see on the table to the right, you have much higher savings to be expected in winter time, and this goes down during the summer months. And you see as well that this varies as well over the years. So there is different savings in 2020, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So you cannot expect that the savings are always constant or always the same. This depends on the actual weather pattern. What is relative for sure is that you have better savings in wintertime and less savings in summer. And what is not shown here, that you have better savings in the eastbound direction, because this is with the wind, and less savings against the wind. But on the small graph on the below, you see the large variability of the savings. So this in the extreme case, this goes from zero. There are some voyages where are no savings or even negative savings, but the saving can as well be around 700 kilowatt. So that's quite a variability in the savings. And then it's of course interesting, and the next slide illustrates this, how to understand the claimed power gains by the vendor. So if I say average power gains, then our understanding is that this is the average over a voyage or over a specified period, for example, 1 year, or here in this example, over 5 years. And here we had 510 kilowatt net power gains. And then some vendors, they claim, the average savings when the system is on. That's a different story. The average saving when the system is on, here in our case, is 746 kilowatt net power gains. So between the first number and the second one is in principle is the utilization. So all the times when the system has been off are not included in this average, while this is included in the first number. And then one can state, my savings under favorable conditions. Here in this case, the best voyage, that was 1,776 kilowatt. So these different numbers mean, in principle, this is based on all the same simulations, but it depends what you're really looking at, or what the vendor is looking at and what the vendor is telling you. If you look at the best 10 minutes average in 5 years' time, this even would be 7,000 kilowatt net power gains. So be careful with the numbers you receive from vendors, and look exactly what's the meaning behind. The second question is often, what is the best system for my ship? So this is much more difficult to answer as the first question. How much is the savings? This we can simulate. We can simulate over a certain period of time, and we can show the variability. But for the best system, there is a lot to consider, both in the design and in the operations. You see this here on this slide. This is the free deck space, structural integration, stability, hazardous zones, added weight, air draft, etc., and much more operational. It's reliability of the system, so as well availability of the system, interference with deck cargo, eventually engine and propeller derating, impacts on the maneuverability, crew education, and all this has to be considered when thinking about the best system for my ship. What we see on the installation maybe makes it a little bit easier to select. Because as said, we see a lot of installation on tankers. This is at the moment it's mostly medium range tankers. They are often fitted with suction wings. The bulk carriers tend to install rotor sails, and but we see as well the large wing sails on in principle on any type of ship. So probably there are some reasons behind that ship owners find this the best solution. So then let's turn this to verification, because of course you want to know how much are the actual gains for the wind system. So what has the vendor promised, and what do I see in reality? For the verification of savings, DNV has worked on a recommended practice for verification of wind-assisted propulsion systems, and the same we have done for air lubrication system. And the idea behind this is quite simple. Both of these systems, air lubrication and wind, you can switch on and off. And if you do it directly after one each other, then you can compare the condition on and the condition off. And we believe that this is best suited for long-term measurements, to have a large number of measurements, large number of results, then not only the average savings can be assessed, but as well the uncertainty in the results. And on the next slide, I have some examples of pilot projects we have recently performed. So this is savings by low friction paint. This have been investigated by VTI. This is a different recommended practice. Savings by in-transit hull cleaning. This is as well kind of on-off, meaning that it's before and after. This has been done based on noon data. And then we had 4 projects where the savings of air lubrication system has been verified. This has been 2 large container vessel series, a Kamsarmax bulk carrier and a Ro-Ro cargo vessel. And here we are talking about the wind. We had several projects on very large bulk carriers. 2 are finished. 1 is at the moment ongoing. We had 1 Kamsarmax bulk carrier. We had 1 Ro-Ro cargo vessel at the moment working on the second one, and as well assessing long-term savings on the handy-sized tanker. So this is so valuable because we can then compare our predictions for these vessels, which we can as well do for past voyages, of course, and compare with the actual measured savings. How can DNV support? So this is, of course, at first starts with a certification service for WAPS. We can do an approval in principle for these systems or a type approval. Of course, the vessel can be classified with additional class notation, WAPS or WAPS ready. And then we have our maritime advisory service for wind-assisted propulsion systems. We can have a look to the concept. We can do hydrodynamic analysis for evaluation, structural analysis for the integration into the steel structure, risk assessment, for example, for new technologies, decarbonization planning, performance assessment, as I've explained, and performance verification, both on trials and long term. And finally, noise and vibration troubleshooting, should this be needed. Yeah, this is already the end of my presentation. We have here 2 downloads. Download our report on wind-assisted propulsion, where we go much more into detail, and explore our advisory service on WAPS. Yeah, and then I can open the floor for questions. Do you have any questions?
Yes, we actually do. Thank you, Uwe, for your insights. And we have received quite a few questions in the chat already. So let me go through it from the very beginning. So maybe I can already take the first question, which is regarding if the slides will be available later. So yes, we will send out a follow-up email and attach the slides for your reference. So do keep an eye out for that. The second question is, have you done any work examining the onboard weight volume of the system and foundations, comparing the estimated fuel savings against the amount of cargo that is displaced by the additional WAP system weight?
No, we didn't do this in detail, but in principle, the added weight is relatively small compared to vessel size, and typically no cargo volume gets lost. But this is, of course, case by case. But when we look at the large tankers or large bulk carriers, the loss in dead weight is minimal due to the added weight. And even if we look at the smaller vessels, oh, no, I have an echo here. Even at the smaller vessels, often the wind units are placed on the forecastle deck, and then there is no interference with the cargo volume. Yes, there is a small reduction in the dead weight. That's correct, but this should be much less than the savings. Any more?
Yes. Another question is about how should an administration evaluate and approve video or camera-based visibility systems as equivalent arrangements to ensure compliance with SOLAS Chapter 5 regulation when wind-assisted propulsion installations create additional blind spots given that the IMO has not yet established performance standards for such systems?
This is a super interesting question, but it's far beyond what I can answer. And I would like to ask you to hand this over to Klaas, who are dealing with this more or less on a daily basis, I would say.
The third question is, have any casualties, damages been reported since WPA has been installed, and how is this covered in terms of insurance?
I'm just a hydrodynamics here or aerodynamics. This is as well something which I cannot answer. I'm sorry. I would not be aware of any casualties. And how this is covered by insurance, don't know. I believe it could become a problem with cargo operations, and yeah, but no, I'm sorry, cannot answer.
All right, then moving on to the next one. So it's a personal question for you, Uwe. What was your biggest challenges on installing WAPS in terms of retrofitting the ship?
I was not involved in retrofitting projects so far. So, but I had just a talk here during the METS with Otfield, and I asked exactly the same question: what have been the biggest challenge? Not especially for the WAPS, but introducing, let's say, energy saving measures, and among others, wind propulsion. And Jan Oppedal from Odfjell replied, well, the biggest obstacle or hurdle, he would say, is that this is additional work for the crew on board. So it's important that the management stands behind this decision to do these retrofits, and then it's a proper planning. Finally, the installation at the Odfjell vessels was running very smooth because they prepared for this, and in principle they had a wind-ready ship when they left the shipyard in China, and then did the installation here in Europe, and that was all according to plan.
All right, then the next question is, why is kite WAPS not given so much importance?
The kites is here in this presentation not given so much importance because there's only a single installation at the moment we have in our database, but we are working on a few projects where this is exactly assessed. So what could be the savings from kites, and we would be happy to predict in cooperation with the vendor and verify after installation the savings, because this of course is as well a promising technology, because I see probably it's the technology which can be scaled in size most easily compared to the others. So just go ahead, all the kite developers. We are happy to cooperate.
All right. Also, another personal question for you, Uwe. Have you done any work comparing the technical potential for fuel savings from different WAPS technologies, either in general terms or for specific ship types or sectors? Can you share the results?
Yeah, yes, this is done quite often in projects that the ship owner wants to know what's the benefit of different technologies. And I would say at the moment, it's not so much the technology itself, it's more the size the units are available. For example, if you think about rotor sails and suction sails, the biggest units available today are rotor sails 35 times 5, and the suction sails are a little bit larger, so 36 meters in height and with a slightly larger span. And overall, in the comparisons we've done, these two systems perform very similar. And when you then, as a third technology, add the large wing sails, then it really matters. The size matters. So the large wings from BAR technology, they are often performing even better simply because of their size. And the little smaller ones from, I don't have the name of it, from Ocean Wings, they perform a little less, but this is as well due to the size. The units are available today. So in principle, every of these mentioned technologies can be sized so that they perform that they can perform equal. So now again an echo. I don't know where this comes from time to time. Yeah. Yep.
Well, for me, it sounds fine.
Okay.
We hear you
I
properly.
have an echo here. I don't know. Oh, please continue.
Yes, the next one is about how do you measure the gain with changing weather situation? Do you take wave height into account, for example?
No, our the recommended practice assumes that you measure directly one after the other, and then further it's checked if the environment is, let's say, constant. So we have in every case we have an on and off. We have constant weather conditions. We assume that we have no change in the seaway in the waves. We have no change in the wind. Um, and if we see changes, then we don't evaluate. So and then we have 100, 200, 300 on-off pairs which we evaluate, and but this is then independent from the weather. And a large number, this tells us then what are the savings in which weather conditions, and this we can compare with the predictions of the vendor.
Okay, then moving on, is there any side force due to the WAPS installed on board?
Yes, of course. So that's so the every sail not only produces a forward thrust, but as well produces a side force. And to make it even more complicated, if you have placed the sail unit somewhere on board, they introduce as well a yaw moment, which has to be balanced by the rudder. So sailing is a quite complex thing. Uh, Although on a small dinghy, you do this more or less automatically when you're sailing. But when you want to design a ship, then it can become rather complex. So why is this not an issue at the moment? Because the sail power we install today is not that large, so that this really makes a difference. But you may recall the example I've given to you. The best 10 minutes in a 5 years period. This was equivalent to 7,000 kilowatts of power, and this is almost the total installed engine power of this ship. So in such a condition, you really have to look what about stability, what about the side force, what about the healing moment, what about the healing angle which results, what about can I compensate the yaw moment with the rudder, or do I have to depower the sail? So the larger the sail power becomes, the more complex is the project work and the installation.
Okay. The next question is also on the personal bit part. So, how has DNV's results from testing WAP so far stood up against promises from manufacturers or initial expectations?
For sure, we have only a limited number of pilot projects now done, and I wouldn't say that any of the results has stood up against promises. The promises have been higher, what we've seen so far, but this could be explained either due to the utilization or due to interaction effects which have not been considered in the prediction. So it was not against, but it was a difference, yes.
Okay, we have some more questions. So what is your experience of the difference between theoretical considerations or calculations compared to the practical real gain of energy?
Yeah, it's not so big. Let
Does it help, Uwe, if I mute myself?
Let's try. Yeah, could be better. The difference between predictions and actual savings, yes, as I described before, this basically comes from the utilization, which is less than expected, or maybe even not considered at all by the vendor when they claim, okay, this is the savings when the system is on. If it's utilized only 10% of the time, then of course overall the savings will be much less. And the other thing is the interaction effect, which I mentioned. Another thing which can be, so the vendor for every condition where the vessel is sailing is providing a prediction what should be the actual saving in this moment, at this ship speed, at this wind speed, at this wind direction. But when the wind sensor fails, so if the wind speed is erroneous or the wind direction, then the prediction gets wrong, and then of course it appears that what we measure and what is predicted is very much different. But basically, in such a case, this is a result of an erroneous wind sensor.
Okay, so I think we have identified the problem with your echo, Uwe, so it helps if I mute myself. So I'll go ahead and do that. So moving on to the next question. To what extent can wind-assisted propulsion realistically decarbonize deep-sea shipping compared to alternative fuels like ammonia or methanol? And is wind-assisted propulsion a transitional technology towards zero-emission shipping or a long-term pillar of maritime transport?
Yeah, as mentioned, what we see at the moment, the installation on the large ships, I would say that this will be possible to save fuel or emissions in the order of 5% with today's technology. On smaller vessels, we can achieve much more because the size of the technology has not upscaled so much at the moment. Um, in in But in principle, of course, we can fit larger sails or sail units or whatsoever, larger rotors, larger suction sails, as well on the bigger vessels. The question is, does it economically make sense? At the end, it's a case by case study or decision. And I've shown examples where you can expect more than 40% savings today, small vessel, 80 meters. It's difficult to say. I don't know if you have followed the talk between with Odfjell today. They believe the sails are a technology which helps decarbonizing, and it reduces fuel consumption to a certain extent, but helping in the overall picture, especially when you consider much higher fuel prices for e-fuels, biofuels in the future. It makes it economically very feasible.
Perfect. All right. Also keeping time in track, I guess we will stop with the questions now, but we will get through the remaining ones. So we have three more, Uwe. Are WAPS installations being paired commonly with other complementary technologies such as shaft generators?
Yeah, hard to say because the ships where we see installations, for example, these medium range tankers, they have shaft generators anyhow. The one bulk carrier we have assessed, they didn't have shaft generator. They provided energy to the rotor sails by generators. The second one, this is, if I'm not mistaken, this was a vessel with shaft generator, but typically this is not done at the same time. I would say it's not, maybe it's not necessary because the power demand of the sails is not that large. Probably the capacity of your generators or of an existing shaft generator is sufficient. This is a different story with air lubrication, where the power demand of the system is much higher. So for such a case, I would say a shaft generator would be more or less a must. Otherwise, you lose too much of the potential savings.
Mhm. Next question. In your example voyage, have the route been optimized in order to maximize effect or uptime of the sails during the voyage, or is the vessel sailing the route as it otherwise would have without sails?
In this simulation, which was a high-level assessment, no route optimization has performed, but this can be included. We have been participating in a workshop organized by Swedish Model Basin, and this can have a significant impact on the savings. The larger the sales, the larger the sail power, the larger the savings by route optimization. If you have only small, let's say a small sail area installed, then as well the expected savings by route optimization are as well limited.
Okay, moving on to the second last question for today. How many ships currently are in operation are equipped with wind assistant propulsion system?
When I followed the chat here correctly, I was corrected that somebody mentioned that it should be 100 vessels. Well, we have in our files only 79. I know that Gavin Allwright always says we are close to 100. So obviously, this is a bit under discussion. But let's say it depends a little bit. I would say so. The numbers from Clarkson are even below, so we are somewhere in between. Let's say we have almost 100, and I think then we are fine.
All right, then the last question for today's session is what was the oldest vessel that has been retrofitted with WAPS that you know about, and are the maintenance costs high?
The oldest vessel. No, I believe this is still relatively new vessels which are retrofitted because the payback time is still under the current fuel prices is still relatively long. I believe the first movers, let's say the first movers, yeah, okay, but here I see Maersk Pelican. Yes, that's from 2016. We got here are different numbers coming. No, I have no idea what's the oldest, what has been the oldest vessel. The oldest project I'm aware, but this was as well a new building. That was the E-Ship One, built at Lindenau, at least the steel structure, and that's already quite some years ago. Let's you go back to 1922. Yeah, obviously we can discuss the number of large sails. Um, there was one question the on the cost.
Do you want to address one more question, Uwe? Or
No, I think you asked this. you asked this
Yes.
in
Are
the
there
second part,
maintenance costs?
but
Yes.
I don't
Mhm.
know about the cost. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, then with that, we have come to the end of the breakout session. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm sure you found this session to be productive and helpful, and hope you have a better understanding of WAPS, and it helps you make decide if it's the right technology. But yeah, if you're interested to learn more, then you can visit our page to get more insights. I'm gonna go ahead and share a link in the chat so that you're able to get more details. And yeah, as I mentioned, in the follow-up email, you will be receiving the presentation and some relevant details. And with that, I would like to announce that we have come to the end of the event, so there is no need to go back to the main stage. And I wish you a good day, good evening, or good night, wherever you are. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.